you all? This is Nina and you're listening to the Audible Weed Walk. This is episode number 10. So last week, how was the fractals and recipes? Did you try the recipes? How was it? Why don't you write to me about it or anything else that you find relevant for this particular topic at edibleweedwalk@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Now, to carry on the fractal theme, where there is nothing local, that is also not global, we will focus today on a particular plant. A plant that we all think that we know, or maybe we know. I don't know about you, but when I see a plant, and even the most familiar one, when I hear the stories about where it came from, where it went, how it is, and finding out new realities of the plant makes me feel mighty wonderful, actually. I feel a universal connection, the oneness. Hopefully you do too. And nothing will make this, if nothing, this podcast will make you probably pay more attention to this ubiquitous greens, or rather calling it a spinach substitute, the plants that you know. This is how it all started, where we came to today's topic. You know, the tomatoes, eggplants, etc. are called nightshade families. This family is much feared because this plant, if not taken, respectfully or exactly how it is to be taken, it can be quite toxic. They are medicinal, but can be quite deadly also. So black nightshade is the common name for mantakali or Solanum nigrum that we usually refer to it. However, it is a tasty and all packed with goodness. Even then, across the globe, there is a bit of scare. If you read blogs, if you read websites, if you read papers. In one paper, I read a report where it reported that a PhD thesis was written on this plant. And it indicated that nothing about this plant was found deadly. Even then, the conclusion of that paper was, well, it is better to avoid it. So, here we go. I know it is one of our most favorite greens of the season, as you would notice that it is actually growing plentiful right now, and it's good to eat at the moment. Come on, I thought, there must be something that is the reason for this scare. And I was reading all this, sipping into my awesome soup, which is called mantakali saru, made with leaves of mantakali or the black nightshade and coconut milk. Maybe another time I'll share that recipe with you. If you have watched our edible weed walk videos on this particular plant, mantakali, you will find that both Krishna and me, we were caught in the camera popping the ripe yummy fruit into our mouth. They are loosely called berries, but they are just, fruits of that plant. In keeping an eye with the fruit, I always kind of keep an eye that when the fruits are plentiful, I gather, a bowl full of that to make a pancake sauce or something like that. And yet, most of our Eurocentric education or outlook will make us say an emphatic no for eating any part of this plant, let alone just the leaves and enjoying the soup. I thought that I should do some investigation. The history takes us back to Solanum. That is the scientific name of the nightshade family. There is a particular Solanum which is found in Europe. It is called Atropa belladonna. Atropa belladonna is deadly nightshade. It's actually called deadly nightshade. This plant is sometimes commonly called as black nightshade. So there you go. It's yet another example of common name actually making things very confusing for a lot of people. Actually, in Kashmir region of India, we have a cousin of that plant called Atropa acuminata. It is called Indian belladonna. When this podcast is posted, I have included a photo of this plant, Indian belladonna. Both atropas mentioned here, they look pretty similar, but very, very different from mantakali, if you really know mantakali. But what to do? The common name is black nightshade and it is confusing. So when the Europeans traveled beyond their boundaries and colonized pretty much most of the world, in the countries that they landed, they found some kind of a cousin of this mantakali or Solanum nigrum or Solanum whatever, and they got scared. So even though the evidence shows that the Native Americans ate the leaves of the nightshades, same or similar to our mantakali, in fact, there are 4 varieties of Solanum nigrum found in Africa alone, and of which the 3 of them are much sought after as food, and the 4th one is too bitter. But the European colonizers were too, they were not into embracing the tradition readily because they were scared of their own deadly nightshade and remain scared of that family. Funny thing is that the scare remains as we keep dabbling with the colonization of different types, of mind, of education system, of food system, suggestion what food is better for you or what lifestyle is better for you. Think about it. By the way, do you recognize the term belladonna? It is a scientific name of a deadly nightshade, yes, but there is a if you know homeopathic medicine, it's a quite well-distributed and well-used homeopathic medicine. Both the European plant and the Indian belladonna are medicinal, though not the only share of belladonna. There are other plants which are actually the source of this same chemical. So, going back to our nightshade stories, let's find out what's available in the USA before we come to India. There is a reason for it. Follow me with the story. USA has currently 3 species, very similar to each other. Honestly, all of them can be called mantakali. They look so similar, they are similar, but slightly different. The 3 are American nightshade, which is called Solanum americanum, and it is found more or less in the southern states of the USA. Then there is our black nightshade, Solanum nigrum, which we are all familiar with. It is found in the Midwest of the country. And then there is a West Indian nightshade, which is Solanum tichanthum, which is in the northeastern state. I have included a picture of both Solanum americanum and Solanum nigrum, which is our mantakali, that you will find in the podcast once it is posted. Have a close look at them. They look pretty similar but different. Turns out that Solanum americanum used to be called Solanum nigrum variety americanum before it received its own status as Solanum americanum. But you would find, this particular plant, Solanum found in America, called Solanum americanum, what's the big deal? It is from that and it is named so. But it turned out that Solanum americanum came to America from Australia. And Solanum nigrum came to Africa just like it did come to India. But then it made me wonder, did Solanum americanum miss out India? It could go to United States. Why won't it come to India? Australia is kind of in between, right? So the leaves of the third one, which is Solanum tichanthum, which is, I read a paper which was so emphatic about mentioning this tichanthum has a H, is Ptych and not Ca. So much that it actually mentions that. So therefore, in honoring that particular researcher who was very, very annoyed for the wrong spelling of tichanthum, I mentioned that here too. But this particular species really looks pretty similar to the Solanum americanum, except that in the young leaves, the underside of the leaves, and sometimes in the older leaves too, it looks maroonish. But otherwise, it's kind of same. And so many people think that it's perhaps not even a species. It's just, variation. Not much research has been done on this particular one, except ripe fruits were fed to a lab rat and they felt healthy and happy. So the happy part I added, but the thing is, why won't they happy? Somebody is collecting fruits from them, yummy fruits, and providing them. But none of these are actually very commonly eaten in the United States. And except for, people who have found foraging, they are already into that kind of a lifestyle, a bit of maverick, what you call, the hippie people. They probably are familiar with and are eating this. But why am I spending so much time on what is available in Americas? Well, it will slowly reveal itself. Why? Imagine a drum roll right here. If you open my coloring book, you will see Mantakali there. The scientific name I have written is Solanum nigrum. If you are from South India yourself or familiar with the greens that are found here, no matter where you are at the moment, you will have this inner conversation that tells you, I know that. You know about this plant, you know how to make or find out how to make 3 to 4 different items out of the leaves. And then there is vattal from the green fruits. Oh my God, they are so yum. The green fruits, which are highly toxic, as is, are treated with salt and curd and then dried. And then it is added to the curry and makes very yummy crumbles. This plant, which is Solanum nigrum, is actually found across India, but it is not as popular elsewhere within India other than in southern India. Like you, I also thought, I got this one. I know Mantakali, we all know. Then after the coloring book was published, I delved more into the edible greens. I found that Solanum nigrum and Solanum americanum look suspiciously similar. In Solanum americanum, the berries are jet black and shiny as opposed to slightly matte colored in Solanum nigrum. The fruit bunch seems to start from one single point in Solanum americanum rather than staggered, almost looking like a braid in Solanum nigrum. The sepal lobes, well, what the heck that is? Sepals are the cup-like structure, often lobed, like, it has digits like, and that holds the flower, and then when it matured, it holds the fruit. Imagine the stalk of the eggplant and the part that holds the fruit, that one. Turns out the sepal lobes of Solanum americanum, are quite distinct. In Solanum nigrum, they are a bit merged. The number of fruits, however, are usually much more in Solanum nigrum in a bunch than in Solanum americanum. All these features you can carefully look in the pictures that will be posted along with this podcast. When one points out, it is easy to see them. Yes, of course, you have guessed it right. We have both Solanum nigrum and Solanum americanum growing right around us, and we do not distinguish them readily. We call them both Mantakali. And we have been eating both of them, even though we kind of usually call them nigrum. We have another very similar one to Mantakali plant, but it's a bit hairy. And the fruits in this plant, when ripe, turns pretty orange or red, but tastes like Mantakali and can be used similarly. This is Solanum villosum, or woolly nightshade. Check out the picture and you cannot miss it. The fruits look distinctly different. The medicinal properties of these plants, of this different variety, are slightly different from each other, but they are all packed with goodness and they can be all eaten similarly. So, how do you eat it? No matter whether you are a Volga German calling the plant, well, let me figure out. I want to pronounce it correctly. I think it's called Schwarzbeeren. Or Africans call it Managu or Manavu. Or Indians call it Mantakali locally, or Anjute in Paithei language in Manipur. You take the leaves and blanch it. You know what blanching is. You boil the water, you turn it off, you put the plants there, and you take it out. This is when you are very confident about where the plant came from. If in doubt, you boil and throw the water first. In Africa, sometimes it is done twice. The green fruits are to be avoided except when it is processed and dried like vatal. Ripe fruits you can enjoy as is or in variety of recipe as jam, sauce, baking, sorbet. But who gathered this information? How did we all get to know about these? Think about it. Remember, science, where it is tested in the lab, meticulously documented, and published in peer-reviewed journal, is only recent. We are referring to humans across the world where, there were no internet or much communication, have found plants that are similar looking, and they use it in a very similar way. The pre-processing is exactly similar, whether you spice it with something else, with green chilies or something not. So how is that possible? Hold that thought for our next podcast. Until then, stay well and stay safe.